G'day guys, welcome back to the Rugby League Guru podcast. We're going to have a look at Origin 3 today and some of the guys that are potentially playing for a jersey this weekend in round 18 of the NRL. Today's episode brought to you by Neds, our official partners for season 2024. You can download the Neds app and follow along with all of my bets throughout the weekend. Tom's bets, Eddie's bets, all the About Even crew on there, and just keep up to date with what we're doing. Would I take all those bets on board? No, I wouldn't. I would very, very carefully pick and choose which ones you take because there are some absolute stinkers in there. Going to bring in my 5'8" Kathmandu, who apparently I was boring her with my intro as she was on her dog and bone watching Instagram stories. Dare I say maybe a Hock Tour feature maybe I heard there. Is that who it was, Kat?
No, I mean, you wouldn't be far off.
No.
Any other point.
Wouldn't be a bad bet at the moment.
No, I mean, it's everywhere. It was actually a little clip from Love Island.
Love Island, of course. I should have known.
You should have known.
How are you?
I'm very good. I like that I'm your 5'8" when Timmy's not here.
Well, yeah. I mean, do you think that's got more to do with you or more to do with maybe someone being a little bit sensitive?
You never spent. Oh, okay, I get you.
Oh,
But
I'm not going to put words in your mouth.
Yeah, you don't really specify where I come into the team dynamic when it's Timmy. So you're going to have to start identifying: am I the halfback? Am I the hooker?
Yeah, I don't think you should take it to heart. I think you should maybe look around the room in certain situations, and someone can get a little emotional at times. So
sounds like you've had a talking to before.
And I might be talking about Tim. Maybe I tell Tim the same about you. I don't know. I'll have to let you two decide. To let you two work that out.
Fair enough.
It's like when you tag on Facebook, tag one mate that's a legend, one that's a dud, and they got to work it out which one's which.
Now fight.
Good times. Okay. Cat, Origin 3, not too far away, the decider, very exciting. And heading into round 18, there are a couple of key guys that I want to talk about as far as where they sit when it comes to, I was going to say Brad Fittler, Michael Maguire's and Billy Slater's teams for game 3. A couple of guys that not only do I think they're playing for a jersey this week, there's a couple of guys that have returned from injury, I think hopeful of getting a jersey. We've had a couple of injuries, not too many injuries to be fair. It's only Xavier Coates who has gone down injured. There might be more injuries this weekend though, and that's what you don't know. We've got a list of 4 or 5 guys that are playing for a jersey this weekend potentially, but we could have 2 injuries on Friday or Saturday, and all of a sudden there's a heap of guys playing for a jersey.
Change the conversation.
You might play Saturday, and then the injury happens Sunday, and you didn't know you were playing for a jersey on Saturday. So a heap to get into. Who are we going to start with, Kat? Who's first on the list?
Well, I think we should start with one of the bigger names in terms of Origin contention, and there's this, I guess, question mark around this player because he's been named for this week.
Yeah.
Whether or not he plays will make it a really interesting, I suppose, pivot point for this conversation. But let's talk about Kalyn Ponga.
Yeah, really interesting one. Obviously, Fletcher Sharp's been playing fullback the last few weeks. There was a lot of rumours around last week that KP could return this week. From what I'd gathered from people at Newcastle, he wasn't going to return. What it sounded like was that Newcastle want him to return in round 20 and KP wants to return early. So, and I've got to ask the question, and to be honest with you, I don't have a huge issue with this, but if Origin was 3 weeks ago, would KP be returning this week? I'm not too sure. I personally think KP's, and rightly so, he's eyeballed this Queensland team. He's seen Kurt Capewell in jersey 17, seen a couple of changes and thought, I think if KP thinks he's ready to go, by all means, go and play this weekend. But I personally think it has something to do with him wanting to play for Queensland, which I also have no issue with. He should want to play for Queensland. He should want to play rep football. He's the reigning Dally M medalist, one of the best players in our game right now. You do just hope that it's not returning too early. I believe it's a Liz Frank injury he's coming back from, which, from all the things I've read from NRL Physio and from World Sport, probably one of the...
Take a minute.
But it's also one of the more unpredictable injuries as well, that they're not sure when you return if you're going to be at your best or
down
re-injury
to the
rate.
Individual.
Yeah, I think it's very much like, I know that, and it's a different sport obviously, but I know that there's been a lot of Liz Frank injuries that have essentially ended NBA careers over in the basketball. Guys that they thought would be okay that just aren't themselves when they return and whatnot. We haven't seen too many of them that have had those sort of outcomes in the NRL.
I've just looked it up. It does not look like a pleasant injury to
No,
have.
apparently it's awful.
Yeah, I
apparently
think
it's awful.
playing on this looks pretty painful. So
Yeah, tough gig. So Kalyn Ponga returns. Now, obviously Reece Walsh, he wasn't at his best in game 2. He was pretty poor in game 2, in my opinion. Game 1, he obviously lasted 7 minutes, then was taken out of the game. So it's, you know, I mean, he only started playing Origin last year, but it hasn't been an overly successful period for Reece Walsh. I personally think game 1 rattled him a little bit, Kat.
Oh, I think
as
so.
it probably should have. He got knocked the fuck out.
Well,
that was pretty brutal.
he got knocked out by Suoli and then had to face Latrell in game 2. And I think that's quite a lot to go through.
Yeah, I think just the knockout itself. And you got to remember as well, between the knockouts, he didn't play a game of football. So it was going straight from being knocked out to, and like as much as Reece Walsh, you know, he's a superstar of our game. He's 21, 22.
So young.
Like he's a young man that's been through a lot in those few weeks. And I don't think any of us at home, or not many of us, really can judge like how much that impacts you. A shot, getting hit with a shot like that.
No, thank you.
Pretty brutal. So as much as he hasn't played his absolute best footy in the Origin arena this year, I personally don't think there's a hope in hell KP could jump Reece Walsh in one game. I think that's Reece Walsh's jersey. But I do think KP would be looking at that jersey 17 going, okay, this is one that I can hopefully win back. And I think that Kurt Capewell was picked there in game 2. Sure.
Yeah.
I personally, he wouldn't be my selection. And I think what matters more, Kat, is that as a New South Welshman, what scares me more, Kurt Capewell, jersey 17, or Kalyn Ponga? And it's Kalyn Ponga every day of the week. Who can probably cover more spots? It probably is Kurt Capewell because he can play in the forward pack. But honestly, if Queensland had an injury or something and they just threw Kalyn Ponga on in jersey 13, I would be absolutely shitting myself.
Yeah.
It's not what I want to deal with.
So do you think whether or not he can actually be in contention for that 17 jersey comes down to whether or not he actually plays this weekend?
Oh, he has to play this
Yeah.
weekend. Yeah. There is. I still think, based on Billy Slater and his selections he's made over the last few years, if you are not 100% fit and you're not ready to go, you will not be selected. He showed that with Selwyn Cobbo in game 2. He's shown that with like even Jai Arrow this series. He knows he's not 100%, so he's left him. So I personally, I think even if KP gets through this game, I think he's probably at long odds still. I'm still not convinced.
If he's showing any signs of a lack of confidence or that there's still a bit of a niggle there in his foot, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it won't happen. So one to think about there. I also think the reality is Billy Slater left Selwyn Cobbo out of the side. He's now been playing and is fit and available, so he could also just pick the same guy he had in game 1.
And I know I wanted to touch on Cobbo later, which we will still do, but I think on that, when it became public knowledge that it was actually Cobbo who had said to Slater, I'm not ready for game 2.
Yeah.
That obviously left that jersey open, but like you said, Cobbo can turn around and that I think should be his jersey if he feels fit to play and if Slater still thinks that he's the one to wear that jersey. What do you think about that?
I think that when it's like jersey 17, I don't know if anyone has ownership over that jersey. I think that, and you know what the other thing is too that we need to consider is and we'll talk about it soon, but with Coates out, you might just see Selwyn go straight to the wing. So that jersey might be open regardless. That position might be open regardless.
Yeah.
But you know what, Kat? Also, part of me thinks like, who as a New South Welshman, who would I least want to face, Kurt Capewell or Kalyn Ponga? And it's Kalyn Ponga. Why? Because KP's got, more high-end potential, higher ceiling. He can be a lot more damaging. That's also, like, they're obviously very different players. But that's how I would probably just describe Dane Gagai compared to Kurt Capewell, and he didn't make that selection in game 2 that I thought he would.
But I think everybody agreed that the Kurt Capewell choice was a little bit rogue.
Yeah, 100%. But Billy Slater didn't.
But that's what makes it so difficult to predict what's going to happen with this, because KP might come out and have a great game, but Slater could still decide he's not ready. He's not played enough footy.
Yeah, quite possibly, and it would like. Realistically, I think the most likely scenario out of all this is that he picks Kurt Capewell. It's just the most obvious choice, and he believed enough in him 2 weeks ago. I don't think Kurt Capewell did anything to show him not to believe in him anymore. But yeah, I would be for a decider at Suncorp on a fast track like that as well, that's the other thing I would take into consideration. If you can pick Kalyn Ponga in your squad, I think it is a big play. The other thing is as well, but Kalyn Ponga needs to declare that he is 100% sweet, fit and ready to go, which isn't quite the vibe I'm getting out of the Newcastle Knights. But a bit hard to read into what that is. You know, the Knights probably aren't overly keen on KP going to play Origin after he's just come back from an injury as well.
Exactly.
So you need to take that into consideration, which I don't blame them. It's their marquee player who's had a lot of injuries and whatnot. They need him on the field. So yeah, a heap to take in there. But Kalyn Ponga, I think he is one guy that, one, he is going to have to play this weekend. Two, he is going to have a big game to even start considering him as an option for game 3. So a lot of water to go under that bridge, as they say, Kat, but one to watch this weekend because I think, or I believe, there is a reason why KP has returned this week, and I think it has something to do with the Origin Arena. Who's our next player?
Very interesting. Okay, the next player that we're going to talk about is another one for Queensland. This is David Fifita. He's been, we've had quite a few conversations about him. I think there's a lot of mystery around why he wasn't selected for this side, knowing that he is full strength. He's been playing with the Titans, no issues whatsoever, but that there may be other things going on here. So give us your thoughts.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people saying that Dave Fifita is playing for a Queensland jersey this week. I don't know, Kat. I kind of find it hard to believe. He could have picked him for game 1 if he wanted to. He chose not to. Once again, we're all talking about Kurt Capewell, Dane Gagai. He also had the option, if you're looking for a jersey 17, a guy that can cover a lot of position and is damaging as all hell. Dave Fifita fits that bill pretty well.
Yep.
Not only did he not pick him in jersey 17, he picked a jersey 18, 19, 20 and didn't pick him in that either, so left him out of it altogether.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I forget who the Titans are playing this. They're playing the Sharkies this week in Coffs Harbour. I mean, what can Fifita do in this game against the Sharks that convinces Billy Slater, I made a mistake? In the biggest game of this entire series, I need to fold on what I decided on in game 1 and 2 to bring him in. I mean, if Fifita goes out and scores 3 tries, incredible form, it's fantastic. But have we learned anything more about Fifita? We know he's a juggernaut. We know he can be the most damaging player in rugby league on his day. Billy Slater's not stupid. He's well and truly aware of this.
Billy knows. He still didn't pick him in the first 2 games. So I think Fifita's at long odds to get back into this side. I don't think he'll be there in game 3. I'm happy to be proven wrong, and it would scare me if I was wrong because I'm glad he's not there. But I don't know. I don't think you leave a guy out for – there has to be a reason for that, and I don't think it's about on-field. I think there is more to this. And whatever that is, I don't know if Slater does that in game 3. In saying that, there was – and I mean, it's a little bit different, but, you know, Madge obviously left Latrell out early, but he'd only just come back from injury. Fifita's been fit and ready to go for a long time. I think it's a very different conversation between those two.
So, and, you know, maybe he does end up in this side, but personally, it would surprise me a little bit.
Yeah.
Just because it doesn't quite make sense for Slater to just flip on this when we haven't learned anything new. We haven't, unless there's been things going on behind the scenes and these two have been having conversations for the last few weeks and Fifita's gone and worked on whatever it is. The only possible thing that I can think this is, if it's got to be on field, is that like sometimes his line speed and a slow play the ball at times, but I don't know if I'm just nitpicking, looking for reasons.
You're looking for reasons, yeah. And if it was off field, now obviously this is alleged because it's just our own speculation, but do you think the reverse on the Panthers and the decision to leave Titans reversing so quickly and his indecisiveness around that, do you think that ruffled some feathers along the way?
Yeah, I personally think that's exactly what it is. And we've sort of spoken about this a little bit here and there. And maybe it's something on field that I'm missing, but the timing of it all, Kat, for him to be one of the best back rows in rugby league. He was in the side last year. There's this whole, you know, as I said before, this did happen when he was at the Broncos previously too. Like, this isn't the first time that Fifita's caused a bit of stir and probably not handled this stuff overly well. I personally think it's got something to do with it, and I just don't think that changes between game 2 and game 3.
Very interesting.
And like at the end of the day, Kat, yes, this game is a must-win game, but like they were trying to win the series last game too, and they didn't bring him in. They literally brought in every other back rower not named Dave Fifita. Trent Lear is in there. Kurt Capewell comes in. Felice Kafusi comes in. Like, I don't know. Maybe he is playing for a Jersey, and if I'm a Queenslander, I'm kind of hoping he is. But I think Slater's drawn a little bit of a line in the sand for this year.
Yeah. If I was to try and find anything as well, the guys that are named are a little bit older than him. And I don't know if Slater puts value on that part of, I guess, of who he's picking.
Yeah.
But at the same time, naming a 21 or 22-year-old fullback at the same time, like you can't discriminate from position to position. But I do wonder because people often forget just how young David Fifita is, if it's just a not now thing as opposed to a not ever thing.
Maybe, yeah. But like,
once again,
as
searching
you said,
for reasons.
The rest of his squad, it's a very young squad.
Yeah.
And I mean, Trent Leroux, who he brought into the squad, he's a year younger than Fifita too.
Okay.
So
well, that just pretty much rules out.
But you're right. No, it doesn't rule it out because the guys that he did pick are experienced guys.
Yeah, like your
Felice
Kafusis and your Kurt Capewells, they're a lot older. They've been around a while.
Yeah, so maybe, I don't know. But like, for example, like Jeremiah Nanai's pretty young. He's got a lot of defensive issues that Slater just seems to not ignore, but just look past. That's it. And maybe it is an age thing. Maybe it's a maturity thing. Like it could honestly be absolutely anything with Slater and Fifita, and it might even be something that if Slater sat down and explained to me, I wouldn't even understand. Like it could be just something that Slater knows that is not going to fit in with this group at this point in time, whatever it might be. Yeah. So impossible to work out. But I personally don't think he's playing for Jersey. I'm not sure. Apart from mass injuries, I'm not sure if there's anything Fifita could do this weekend that would get him into that side. But
who knows?
We will see. Who's next?
Well, let's make the switch over to New South Wales now.
Yeah.
One of the biggest names in New South Wales. He's been named to play for the Manly Seagulls this weekend. And where he's going to play for the Manly Seagulls is causing some discussion within the rugby league community, but it is none other than Tom Trbojevic.
Tommy Turbo, yeah. A timely return. I think this is sort of always when it was penciled in for Turbo to return. I think KP's returned back for Origin. I think Turbo was always due around this time. And you know what? The conversation, Kat, like, obviously we need to see, first of all, that Tommy Turbo's fit and ready to go. If I'm being completely honest, the fact that he's come back at centre doesn't fill me from confidence from day one.
Well, this is typical of him to come back in that role from injury. Is that correct? Is this not what happened last time he was injured for I could have sworn he came back.
There was talk about it. I don't think he actually did.
He ended up back straight into fullback position.
I thought he did. I think there was there's always been a lot of talk about him playing centre. Maybe he played a game or two at centre potentially. We'd have to go back and have a look at that. But I sort of remember him just returning at fullback. There's always talk about the centre thing.
Yeah. Well, also because for New South Wales Blues.
Well, he plays there for the Blues, obviously, but I also think he plays there for the Blues out of necessity of just getting him into the team.
Oh, exactly.
When there's other guys in the squad that can play different positions and whatnot. But I don't know. We know with Tommy Turbo, even when he has returned from injury, he has returned hesitant on a number of occasions. I even watched him at the start of last year, round one, I think it was against Canterbury, and he sort of got into a half gap and just passed the ball off to someone because he was just sort of holding back a little bit. We've seen that sort of stuff on a few occasions from Tommy Trbojevic. I just don't know if it's a gamble I'd be willing to take. And you know what, Kat, if he comes back this weekend, they play the North Queensland Cowboys. Let's say he absolutely carves up the Cowboys. He scores 3 tries. Best case scenario, looks as good as he's ever looked. What do you do? Do you want to play him at centre? Okay, who are you going to drop, Latrell or Stephen Crichton? I don't think either of them can be dropped.
I'm not dropping either of them.
I'd love to chuck him on a wing, but I can't drop Brian Toto, and I don't know if he can drop Zach Lomax after what he's done. I said to you before game 2, Zach Lomax has had one good game for New South Wales. If he doesn't have a great second game, maybe you can look at bringing Turbo in. But Lomax, he couldn't have done any more than what was asked of him. He was sensational. Honestly, the only one that I could see them dropping is maybe Dill Edwards, but I think that's near incredibly unlikely. I think that Dill has played one Origin game, and we said before that Origin game that he would have to go pretty poorly to even put him in that category. He was the first choice guy for game one, got injured, came in game two, did really well. Obviously scored a try, had a hand in a few others, just did what he had to do. He obviously dropped a bomb at one point that people jumped all over him for. But outside of that, I thought he was really good. But once again, if Turbo's not feeling confident enough to play fullback for the Manly Seagulls, I'm not going to chuck him in for the New South Wales Blues.
God, no.
And
if Deal Edwards didn't have the best fullback game you've ever seen in your life, you can't throw Turbo into that
I don't
role.
think you can throw Turbo in there. And
at Suncorp against that Maroon side, that's horrifying.
I think against anyone, like if he's not willing to do it against the North Queensland Cowboys this weekend, you can't do it in rep football.
Yeah.
So I don't know where Turbo fits in. The other people would be saying, oh, you could play Latrell at fullback. I don't think I want Latrell at fullback. I think that with DCE's kicking game, I think he would respectfully pick Latrell apart. And we've got the best left centre in rugby league, and we showed in game two how damaging he can be there. Why would you change that?
Why would we do that? No,
Why would we change that around for a guy that's played one game of footy back out of position? I would love to have Turbo in there, and the idea of just sweeping him in there before game two as we were sort of facing losing the series excited me. But the closer we get, the more I just don't think I could do it.
No, I actually agree with you completely. And this is I am the biggest Tom Trbojevic fan that doesn't support Manly. I love him and I think he's great. And I love what he brings to the game. But sometimes you just got to admit that they're not fit enough or that they're not ready for that. And we want to win game 3. No weak links.
No weak link. And and you know what? If we were to have an injury this weekend, let's say one of Critter, Latrell, Lomax, To'o, Edwards goes down.
Cool, done.
Is it cool? Is it even cool done after one game?
If he plays well and he shows that he's confident and that he's ready, absolutely. If he doesn't, then we're not sure.
But even a guy like Bradman Best, like he's shown you he's confident and ready to go for 2 weeks. Like I don't even think it's automatic that he would be the next guy. If we need a genuine centre, I reckon there's every chance that Bradman Best could be the next guy up.
I mean, he's done it before.
So I think the idea of pulling Turbo in is very appealing, but the reality of it, I think there's a lot more to think about than that. And I think the biggest thing at the end of the day is you don't change your winning side.
Yeah. I think also something to note is, and this is with most sport, recency bias plays a huge part in a lot of these conversations, but it looks to me like Michael Maguire doesn't think like that.
Yeah.
When he picked that blue side, it wasn't about who's performing their best right now. It's who's ready now, who's in their best form now. And that's why I'm glad Latrell was ready for game 2 when he was. But that's why it's so hard to predict what's going to happen with Trbojevic, should he be ready.
Yeah, and I think that even if you wanted to do what Queensland are doing and pick him in like a jersey 17, I don't think any of the guys in our bench deserve to be dropped. And you've got Connor Watson, the most versatile player in rugby league, essentially. So I can't really see a world where Turbo gets into this side barring mass injuries to this footy team. Now, last one we're going to touch on, we're going to jump back to sort of the Queensland side of things because New South Wales, there really isn't much to talk about. There is actually one jersey that's genuinely up for grabs, waiting for someone to grab it. That's Xavier Coates' jersey.
Yeah.
He obviously got injured last weekend for the Melbourne Storm. They need someone to come in and replace him. And the options, there are a few. There is obviously Selwyn Cobbo, who played game 1. He's played on the wing for the Brisbane Broncos the last few years. He's played on the wing for Queensland as well. Yeah. Obviously been playing left centre this year, can play on the wing. The other one, Dane Gagai, who was the 18th man in game 2. I think Slater spoke about it a week before game 2, saying that he doesn't believe Dane Gagai's job is done for the Queensland Maroons, that he will play again. So I would assume he's very close to it. And when you throw in the Xavier Coates jersey, you've also, I think, got to look at Val Holmes, who I thought was pretty poor in game 2. He's had a very strange season, Val Holmes.
Very quiet.
You know what, with the ball, he's been okay. He's made a lot of errors, but he's running the football hard. He's putting himself in good spots. But I just think defensively, he's been awful this year. And if you're going to mark Latrell Mitchell, you have got to be at your best. And something about Origin Cat where if guys are proven to do it on the big stages, like Dane Gagai is, like if I'm a Queensland, I'd be pretty confident. And you know what? Dane Gagai in clubland, he isn't the greatest defensive centre. He has a lot of issues. But I just think in Origin, if you gave Dane Gagai that job, hey, come back in, make your return for Queensland. We need you to take care of their best player. I'd probably back Gags to find a way to do it.
He is one of those players that is just different gravy when he's playing State of Origin.
He's just different. He is just
different. And it suits him. He suits that arena. It just brings out a different side of him. I would feel so confident having him on my side if I were to back the Maroons.
So there is one jersey definitely available that will be filled by either Selwyn Cobbo or Dane Gagai, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then there is the Val Holmes one that is a bit of a mystery that could be filled by both of them. The other option is that maybe you take Val out of centre and you put him on the wing. He won a premiership there. He's played a lot of footy on the wing. He'll do a great job there. We know that. And it's just a few less decisions he has to make in defence. That's one way to go about it. And then you could just get Dane Gagai there, or you could play Cobbo, however you want to do it. But yeah, if I was Val Holmes, I'd be a little bit nervous. I think Val's going to need a big performance this weekend to hold on to his jersey is my vibe. But once again, listen to Billy Slater in the press conference, and it all was a little bit airy-fairy and confusing. But we are Queenslanders, which to me means we don't chop and change. We back our guys in, we pick them, we stick with them. Whether he does that with Val, we'll wait and see.
Yeah, like he backs his decision that he made day one, and he'll do that right through to game 3. What does make it interesting is that we are seeing a matchup between, granted, we don't know what side Tom Trbojevic is going to be playing on, but we will see him up against Val Holmes this weekend, which I think will be interesting to see. Both are essentially fighting for a State of Origin jersey to some extent, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, very, very keen to see. Yeah, and we're not quite sure where Turbo's going to line up yet, but it would be great to see him mark up directly against Val. And you know what? If I'm Val Holmes, I'm going, fucking sweet. Give me the biggest challenge you can throw at me.
Yeah.
I can't actually mark Latrell at centre. I'll mark Tommy Turbo. I'll show you what I can do. So
yeah, I think that'll be interesting.
Yeah, really interesting one there. Yeah, this weekend, a heap of guys to watch, to keep an eye on. And once again, as we said off the top, you might be playing on a Friday night, not know you're playing for an Origin jersey, and then all of a sudden Saturday, Sunday injuries, HIAs, all these sort of things happen, and all of a sudden you're in the frame to play Origin. So really interesting. A lot of guys to watch over this weekend. I do think that Kalyn Ponga and the replacements for Coates and potentially Val Holmes are the most interesting ones. I do think the other ones are long shots, but once again, injuries can happen, chaos can happen. This is State of Origin football. It is never straightforward. There is always something wild going on.
Yeah.
Guys, make sure you download the Neds app. You can follow along with my profile there with all of our bets across every single weekend. Follow along with Tom, Eddie, all the About Even boys, and get stuck into it there. Obviously, prices are subject to change. Gamble responsibly, as always, guys, and go and grab the Neds app.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website